Welcome back to Reviews and Rankings with Robby, and today we take a look at the 2021 film, Old. Old is a 2021 film directed by M. Night Shyamalan, starring Gael Garcia Bernal, Vicky Krieps, Rufus Sewell, and Alex Wolff. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and I'm really excited to talk about M. Night Shyamalan's latest film, Old. M. Night Shyamalan is a director who, to say the least, is polarizing and divisive. Most of the time, it's either a love it or hate it situation with him. There are people who seem to just hate every single film that M. Night puts out, but for some reason, still find a way to watch all these movies. It's almost like they're a glutton for punishment, or they just hate for the sake of hating. But that doesn't mean M. Night Shyamalan is Teflon. He put up a couple of stinkers in the past and a couple of films that kind of fall in the middle. But when he hits hard. He swings for the fences and he hits a home run. Just a few years back in 2016, Split came out, and it's arguably my favorite film of the entire decade. The first movie I saw that M. Night Shyamalan put out was in 1998, The Sixth Sense. That was known for its big twist ending starring Bruce Willis, and luckily enough I was able to check it out in the theater when I was about 13, 14 years old. The ending was not spoiled for me and I enjoyed it. I was floored, and ever since then I've been a fan of M. Night Shyamalan. When the trailers first came out for Old, it immediately kind of caught my eye. I was intrigued by the premise of you're on an island and somehow your age is accelerating at a rapid rate. And this is a little bit of an interesting situation for M. Night Shyamalan because this time it's not one of his own original ideas. Old is actually based off a graphic novel from Sweden called Sandcastle by Pierre Oscar Levy and Frederick Peters. Now, M. Night kind of took the basic premise of this novel and made it his own thing, so it's not a direct adaptation, but it's sourced from that graphic novel. And I'll tell you, going into this, I've heard mixed reviews. I avoided spoilers, but I'm happy to say that this film is not just a hit and a home run for M. Night Shyamalan. It's actually one of my favorite films of the year so far. I've seen about 50 movies that have been released in 2021, so maybe not as much as others, but probably more than your average moviegoer. And this was a film that I had high expectations for. I was crossing my fingers that I wouldn't be disappointed, and I wasn't. Now, the film stars a family. Guy and Priska take their children Trent and Maddox on a vacation. We find out early on that Priska is sick and we're not sure what is going on, and that along with Guy, they are actually going through a separation. They haven't told the kids just yet, but they want to make sure they have one family vacation before their family unit kind of splits apart. During a breakfast in the morning, the family talks with one of the heads of the hotel there, who recommends a private beach. The four of them hop on a van and make their way along with a few other individuals, and they arrive at this beach and seem to have a really good time. It's a really beautiful beach, and it's secluded, and it's not so cramped. But one day, the young boy is swimming in the water, and he bumps into a dead body. That body ends up getting washed up, and everybody that's on this island has no idea what's going on. They run into another individual who's on this island who swears he has nothing to do with the woman dying, but just claims that she went out for a swim and never came back. It's during this time that all of a sudden some of these characters start to age. I'm not going to delve too far into spoilers, but I have to say that the reasoning for their aging, as it's delivered at the end of the film, was a satisfying one, but the journey is even more important than the destination. There's a lot of themes here that need to be talked about. So if you really want to go into this film spoiler-free, I would stop it right here and maybe hit back at this timestamp for my overall rating. Now, during this, like we said, the wife, Priska, is sick. She's got a tumor, and that tumor begins to grow and grow in her body very quickly. There's a few others that are on this beach with them that have their own ailments. There's a doctor who seems to have some psychological issues, almost kind of like a multiple personality or a mental issue. which just gets worse and worse over time. Priska also starts to lose her hearing quickly. And Guy, who has apparently some bad vision, that just gets worse and worse as time goes on. Of course, as you can imagine, the young kids grow up quickly, and that poses yet another problem. Now, the themes that are in this film I think are really important to talk about. Number one, our own mortality. Every single day, people are thinking about, is today going to be my last day? How much more time on this earth do I have? Do I want to know when I'm going to die? How am I going to die? Is it going to be painful? Is it going to be painless? You know, these are all questions that most of us don't know. And watching that in this film, it kind of forces us to, as an audience, to address these themes and really seriously think about them. Of course, what's going on this beach is a fantasy. It does feel like a Twilight Zone type style of storytelling, which I love because Twilight Zone is one of my all-time favorite TV shows, so that really played well with me. Seeing the children get older. Now, obviously, at a beach where every hour they're aging 2 years or whatever it is, or whatnot, that's a little dramatic for the film. But I have a 13-year-old son who's about to be 14. My daughter is about to be 9. And it just seems like yesterday they were just born. And at times, like, I can look back in the past and they weren't even around. So dealing with watching your children grow up before your eyes so quickly is something that is a real idea and a real emotion that as a parent you're always going to deal with. And in this film, you're forced to confront it and deal with it whether you like it or not. So a few other things I wanted to talk about. Number one, dealing with the mental illness side of things. I mentioned one of the other characters who seems to have a mental issue that just gets worse and worse over time. And you tried to kind of ignore it when he showed early signs of the issue, but as the film went along, they couldn't ignore it anymore. And I think that's something that's important. In this country, in this world, in society, we kind of ignore mental illness a lot and try not to talk about it. It's getting a little bit better over the years, but it's still an issue that needs more attention, that deserves more attention. And once again, this film kind of pushes those themes right at us and forces us to confront them. Now, the man who has an issue in regards to his mental health, his girlfriend, his wife, is a bit younger, and she's very vain. She's very obsessed with looking good and looking young. And as she gets older, the way she looks is really messing with her own psyche. There's a scene towards the end of this film where she's kind of in a cave and her arm breaks. And unfortunately, she can't move her arm correctly. And within a minute or two, the bone has healed with the arm kind of being twisted. And her now her arm is like this grotesque looking arm. And then something similar happens to her leg and then a few other bones in her body. And while that's a grotesque visual, it's an impactful one, what I saw in that visual was we can't be so obsessed with how we look at every moment of the day. We can't be so consumed by physical societal standards. It's an issue. And you know what? We're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. You know, I've battled my own weight over the years. I've been very heavy. I've been too thin. And these days I'm trying to kind of keep this balance of being healthy and being confident and finding somewhere in the middle. But it's a struggle. So when I saw her having those issues, those kind of body dysmorphia and body image issues, that hit home with me in a personal way. And I'm pretty sure that I wasn't the only one who felt that way. As far as the aesthetic of this film, the cinematography was absolutely gorgeous. This is a beach, this is an island that I would want to go to if it didn't have that whole aging incredibly quickly curse or whatnot to it. The aesthetics of it really did look nice. Like I said, the cinematography was a beautiful backdrop for this kind of horrifying and serious and downer of a story. It looked really good. It looked very professionally done. M. Night Shyamalan is a very good director. He knows how to play with spacing and angles and lighting, and once again, he does a solid job. Here, M. Night also has a small little cameo, as he does in all of his films. He plays the driver of the van that takes the family and the rest of the people to the beach from the hotel. Now, when it comes to M. Night Shyamalan movies, everybody is always going to point to the end of the film and what is the twist. Well, the twist in Old is a pretty interesting one. It turns out that there's no voodoo curse and there's no magic demon that's putting a spell on this island that's accelerating the aging. No one really knows why this island is accelerating, but there is a group of medical researchers that have found people who have an illness or a sickness. It could be something to do with a mental issue, or it could be something to do with your blood, or you could have a tumor, like the mother in this film. What they were able to do is kind of trick these people into a vacation to this island, and then eventually convince them further to go to the secluded beach. They pumped them up with different kind of experimental drugs and accelerated the aging on the beach to see if these drugs would work. Unfortunately, this is like the 73rd experiment and people are dying, but they were able to kind of just conceal their identities and push them away, and they haven't been able to be found. Unfortunately for this research group, the two children were able to find a way off this island and kind of uncover this plan. They let the authorities know, and shit hits the fan for them, and they're left at the very end being 50-something years old trying to go back to their life. What happens then, that's up to you, the viewer, to kind of fill in the blanks, but I think it was a satisfying ending. It was one that I was not expecting, and when you're watching a movie like this, you don't want to guess the ending halfway through. I feel like most of the time when people say, I saw the ending right away, I think they're just bullshitting. They're just saying that for clout and to seem like a know-it-alls, but they really don't. I had no idea that this ending was going to be what it was. It was a pretty unique one, and it put a bow on this story that was a little less than 2 hours, and I'm really happy I took the time out to go to the theater to see it. And this is one I'm definitely going to buy on Blu-ray and add it to my collection. I own most of M. Night's movies, and this is going to look good right next to the rest of them. In regards to how critics and audiences are viewing M. Night Shyamalan's Old, like I said, it's love it or hate it. Right now, the critic score is at 51% and the audience score is at 50%. Half the people like it, half the people don't, and thankfully, I didn't waste my time like some of these other folks did. I loved it. I think that score is entirely too low. This is one of the best films I've seen this year. It's another solid entry into M. Night Shyamalan's filmography. I know after films like The Last Airbender and After Earth came out in the early 2010s, people really were souring on M. Night Shyamalan. Films like The Happening and Lady in the Water didn't do too well, even though I think they're a little better than people give them credit for. But he popped off back in 2015 with The Visit, came back strong with Split, and finished that Unbreakable trilogy with Glass. Even though there was a lot of folks who weren't a fan of that, I thought it was a very, very good way to put a bow on that series. And here with Old, I am going to highly recommend this to you. Go in with an open mind and just enjoy the story and watch and look for these themes, this kind of underlining social commentary that M. Night Shyamalan is weaving into this mysterious story that has a backdrop of a beautiful cinematography. M. Night Shyamalan's Old is getting 4.5 out of 5 stars. Alright guys, what did you think of M. Night Shyamalan's Old, or the rest of M. Night Shyamalan's filmography? Let me know in the comments below and we'll talk about it. If you liked this video, you can hit like. If you loved it, you can subscribe. And remember, you can hit me up on Instagram and Twitter at RankingsRS. So thanks for checking out the channels, guys, and keep watching movies.